Hey guys, welcome back to Total Tactics FPL. Today's video is going to be the Game Week 27 team selection, but let's actually quickly review what was the bad in last week, and that was Game Week 26 wildcard. I don't think the decision was bad in terms of the logic, but of course the outcome was horrific, and that really just comes down to Liverpool creating a historic all-time result, beating Man United 7-0 at Anfield. Salah hold, Darwin hold, Robertson hold, many other players did haul, and it was a week where I also dropped McAllister onto the bench, which made sense, of course. I think what you have to say, and when you look at fixtures like this, is look at the result between Arsenal and Bournemouth. Look at the chances that Arsenal created, both from underlyings and also just simply if you watch the highlights yourself, and then compare it to something like the Liverpool versus United game. Yes, of course, United were all over the place, but I don't think you would have really expected that, given the run that United were on, and also just given the fact that Liverpool haven't been able to create such devastating results since that sort of Bournemouth 9-0. We haven't really seen anything towards that level, maybe beyond that first 20 minutes versus Real Madrid, and that's what I have to say. I don't think I would have expected them to completely explode in the second half versus a team like United that we probably hold in very high esteem. And if you look at the Arsenal game, players like Odegaard, he created his record-breaking sort of 11 shots in the game versus Bournemouth. He's gotten nothing from it. Saka captaincy, that didn't work out as well. He had great chances, hit the post as well. So this is the sort of week where you have to think about all the sort of little things that happened, your expectations, and compare whether the decision made sense. I had a very poor defense last week where it was Trippier, Trent, and also Tarkowski, which I didn't really fancy because I had Patterson as well. Not exactly the best defense. And of course, I'm playing this Brentford defense, and you can see, of course, now that I have a very similar result. Gabriel, Zinchenko, they're practically the same option, so there's no really point to discuss them. I like the Zinchenko upside. They lost a clean sheet. Not much more to talk about that. Both me and Henry, these were worse fixtures, but I just liked the idea of being able to set up for both Game Week 27 bench boost flexibly and then also Game Week 29. The sort of flexibility there was something that I was thinking about. On top of that, I wanted to go for double Brentford defense so that I could get 11 players in 28, and I didn't really see myself wildcarding in 27 because the way I saw it was you're still going to miss that Salah fixture, especially if you're Game Week 27 wildcarding. I'd probably keep Haaland over Salah, even if I was to wildcard on Game Week 27. So Salah's completely out of the question for me. And yeah, I mean, just looking at the fixtures now, I still like the Brentford fixtures. They're very, very poor in Game Week 29. And yeah, I don't think there was a huge difference between Raya Estupinian versus Sanchez and a Brentford defender. Now, of course, I'm wrong because Sanchez doesn't even play for Brighton right now. And what we saw, of course, was that Steele was someone who was preferred by De Zerbi. He did mention that there was a little bit of doubt in the future as to what would happen between Sanchez and Steele. Clearly, Steele is preferred right now. He hasn't made any mistakes so far, but he could lose his position just like Sanchez has, and that's probably the concern if you're a Sanchez owner on what to do with him, especially if you plan to play a Game Week 27 bench boost or even a Game Week 29 bench boost. Now, if we just go back quickly towards my team this week, Zinchenko, me, and Henry, not the best defense, but I really wanted to get MITOMA and TONEY in my team. That was really the reason why I opted to go for that, and also to bring in Kane for what I thought was going to be a good fixture versus Wolves. Now, that didn't turn out to be the case, but those were three attacking swords that I thought were good enough to cover a relatively similar bench or defense even. Mitoma was someone that I would have replaced Andreas with. TONEY was someone that I would have replaced Darwin with. Now, of course, the results were actually that Andreas had 2 assists. Darwin himself had a great game versus United, one of the first times that we've seen him get a mega haul, arguably, and with Haaland and Kane, quite low ceiling as expected for Haaland, but not as expected for Kane. I thought Kane probably actually had a higher ceiling than Salah did for me when I was even thinking about the games ahead of time. So that's why I was happy to move into a Kane structure as someone who previously didn't own Kane. Now, the result was poor, but let's just quickly move on towards my play for Game Week 27. As far as the defense this week, I'm planning to roll the transfer. I've got Sanchez on the bench, and the reason why I'm keeping Kepa is because I don't really want to Game Week 27 bench boost anymore. I don't have the opportunity now because I have to force a transfer to go into Steele to take that gamble there and get over with the Game Week 27 bench boost, whilst I still think that maybe rolling the transfer will have a little bit of upside for me. If I, let's say, keep Sanchez and Kepa this week, I can move Sanchez on in Game Week 29 in probably a -4 transfer where I get to take 3 transfers in that week and play around with that. Trippier, Henry, and me, these are very simple options. Simply, Henry and me have doubles, and Trippier is going to be the best option compared to Zinchenko and Botman. Zinchenko is an interesting one to talk about being on the bench. I think both Game Week 27, Game Week 29, and even if you look at Game Week 26 in hindsight, I mean, look, McAllister had a fantastic game. Right now, we are entering a period where whatever wildcard you're going for, you're going to be dropping points on your bench each week, and you just have to accept that fact. You have to just pick the 11 best players that you think you have for each week, unless you're bench boosting, and just make a decision and be happy with the result, whatever happens. So Trippier for me just makes too much sense compared to Botman and Zinchenko. And if we head towards the midfield, Odegaard, of course, is actually benched so that I can actually play Mitoma, McAllister, Saka, and Rashford. So I feel like the toss-up really is between Odegaard, Saka, and Rashford. Rashford is playing at home, which is a great fixture. They're probably going to try to redeem themselves, and Rashford, I'm sure, isn't going to lose any minutes because of his performance in the Liverpool game. It's a great chance here versus Southampton. As far as Saka, still think I prefer him always versus Odegaard. You've got the penalty chances there, and simply he's looked very, very clinical as of late, with exception, of course, to the Bournemouth game. And yeah, I like the upside of Saka. They have very similar minutes, and there's not much between them, but Saka for me reigns supreme. And Mitoma and McAllister, once again, non-negotiable, simply because they have fantastic attacking fixtures. It's not even like the Brentford scenario where they have 2 away games, so maybe you could see them losing clean sheets. But I mean, the upside is just fantastic as long as that game doesn't get postponed by some weather conditions. As far as the forwards and the captaincy, I've slammed the captaincy on Toney and the vice captaincy on Mitoma. Haaland and Kane also joined the team as expected. This is one of Kane's best fixtures in a while, and I really like having Kane here. Ultimately, he's going to be one of the interesting single game week captaincy options if you don't really like the doublers for whatever reason. But I think Toney just has an incredibly high ceiling here. A lot of talk has been made about Brentford's away from home form, and I think it's just untrue. If you look at some of the underlying stats for Brentford and you look at the defensive stats, you look at the attacking stats, it's still been very good. Toney himself has posted very, very good numbers away from home. I've also just seen and just eye tested some great performances. His sort of dominant performance at the Emirates is a good example of that. I mean, he completely bossed Saliba throughout the game, was linking up all the chances, and also found a way to kind of hit the post in open play. And then, of course, he scored an offside goal, which is a completely different fixture, but versus one of the toughest defense in the season, away from home in a fortress, which is the Emirates this season. I've seen the best from Toney in those sorts of games. So I love Toney as an option. And then Mitoma, McAllister. Why the vice captaincy on Mitoma? I think it's close between him and McAllister. McAllister, we already saw the upside of penalties, and I don't think you need to make that sort of logical bias of thinking, okay, the penalty's gone, he's not going to get it again. There's a very good chance he can get it as well. We've seen that time and time before. However, I still just like Mitoma and the kind of positions that he's getting to from an attacking point of view, and I still see McAllister as a little bit more of a creative asset. Mitoma has a very, very good eye for goal. We've seen that he's been clinical this season. The data size isn't big enough, but we've already seen good enough performances where I think you can see Mitoma with the form post-World Cup has looked great to the eye. And I mean, he's a vice captain anyway, so for me, the vibes are there. McAllister is someone that maybe some people would like to captain, because if you think about, of course, goals being higher points for midfielders, clean sheets being higher points for midfielders, these two fixtures being great games for Brighton, to have that for both Mitoma and McAllister. Maybe you could bank on, let's say, McAllister hopefully getting a penalty this week, and the ceiling could be there. But I also like Toney for the fact that he's arguably a shield this week. We're going to probably see him towards 95, 100, 120% ownership. I'm not exactly sure about that, but I would like to back Toney when he looks incredible still, and is actually ultimately still playing some very, very bad teams in Everton and Southampton, despite where he's playing home or away. And yeah, I think that's going to be my team selection for this week. One last thing that I wanted to mention is what of the possibility of going for a bench boost. Bench boosting would mean that I would go for Steele. That's one transfer from Sanchez to Steele. And what I actually like about this move is it gets rid of the bench boost for me so that I actually solidify my team. I could start to drop some of these Brentford players that I don't see getting good points in Game Week 29, whereas I feel like they have much better defensive fixtures in Game Week 27. It allows me to go into options like Reece James or even Chilwell that are much more expensive and actually block me from going to this Game Week 30 move of Haaland back in for Toney, because my planned transfer next week is going to be Game Week 28, Haaland out for Havertz or Watkins. So if I do that move, I'll need some more money back, and usually that's why a lot of people are going for these really, really cheap defenses with money in the bank, because we're also expecting to go from something like Odegaard to Fernandes in Game Week 29. So if you're doing that sort of transfer, spending your extra money in the bank, which I have 3.2 million right now on Odegaard to Fernandes, you need some more money in the bank as well if you are to go back into Haaland from Toney. And that's when we're sort of expecting Toney to be suspended from football. That sort of transfer is only capable of being done if you have a much cheaper defense. Now, Steal actually reduces the cost of my defense and therefore allows me to go for someone like a Reece James or a Chilwell. So that's why I sort of like the move of going for Steal. It allows me to go for quite an ambitious transfer towards James, maybe even in game week 28, if I wanted to, let's say, take a hit there and be a little bit more ambitious, I suppose, and also drop Haaland at the very same time because I might not be confident in Brentford versus Leicester. So that's an opportunity there. Ultimately, though, I could also just simply go for James as a game week 29 move. I could drop the Brentford players because I don't really like their doubles. If I get rid of the bench boost in game week 27, I get to cash in on Odegaard versus Fulham, Botman versus Wolves, and Zinchenko versus Fulham. Now, you of course have to compare to what your team would look like in game week 29. There's going to be probably a chance where you have 1 to 2, even 3 more fixtures than your game week 27 team, but you have to actually look at your bench because the starting lineup, the 11 versus 11, is most likely going to be the same. So you need to compare your game week 27 bench and your game week 29 bench and make a decision there. I feel like I'm going to sidestep the game week 27 bench boost. It doesn't make sense for me. I didn't go for James Ward-Prowse. I didn't go for Zaha. So I've got less doublers than some of the people who went for even more ambitious wildcards that were catered towards game week 27 bench boost. So I'm not going to go there. But this was just an option just so I could raise it to you guys. It could be an interesting way to go into Steal. But I generally like the idea of going for a roll here this week where I get to keep Kepa in my team and make decisions, which is why I'm actually going to end up with this final team. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.